Sidechain effects other than a reverb and delay to a vocal. So you can sidechain a distortion just for a different, interesting soundscape.
100 bag, this 100 bag, all the crazy things I'd have never had. Another foreign cars with a shorty's bag, with my nigga D, that's a new collab. Broke my heart for a Gucci bag, and you run it up, girl, that's a lot. Big biters on my neck, it's a cold world, girl, what you know about that?
Now you can get pretty creative with this, just use your ears and trust your ears. But yeah, if you want any effect to only pop out when your vocal's low or when your vocal's not present, go ahead and sidechain it. One of my personal favorite effects to use on vocals is the micro pitch shift. It adds a rather unique character to your vocal, and you can automate it to bring in another layer of energy when you want to accentuate or highlight a certain part of a performance.
I don't wanna stop when the kid done. Like a little kid's bop, but it go dumb. Might have sit up on a squat piece for fun. Me and my set just go in. Off of my set, I go in.
It's a pretty straightforward technique, and there's a ton of plugins you can get the effect with. Waves Doubler is probably the most popular. Soundtoys Little Micro Shift can do the same thing. Eventide Micro Shift. And if you want to do it the OG way, Eventide H3000 has the micro pitch shift effect preset built into it. Now I'm a bit of an obsessive compulsive purist, so I just do it manually on every project for maximum control. But if you want to know how this effect works and how to set it up manually, I'll link to an article in the description below what is happening to create this effect and how to set it up in any DAW you're working in. Now I'm a classically trained pianist, and for the last 4 or 5 years I've been learning the organ. A lot of people will, run a guitar through a Leslie, that's pretty popular. But if you run vocals through some kind of Leslie emulation, tremolo plugin type joint deal, you can get a very interesting, a very, very unique texture on it, and you can just put your vocals in a different space.
Like I need some commission, give all that shit back.
All that shit you doing now, yeah, that shit is whack. Why you always trying to attack me for having feelings? I'm out here and I'm fucking reeling. All this dope, and I'm trying to find ways to fucking cope. I'm trying to smoke, I'm trying to drink, but none of that shit work.
If you use mid-side compression on your background vocals, you can reduce its intensity at the center while still allowing it to breathe at the sides.
For an appearance, I need a minimum 50. He said at 4 a.m. you got the call. 5 a.m. we moved it all. I don't really know if you could stop it. We just started off. Found the ones before we aired out, and now we watch them crawl. Guarded with your life, man. We came way too far to watch them fall.
Now there's other techniques to get this effect, but it's just one more tool you can add to your kit for carving out space for your primary vocal track. You can pin a reverb in one direction and a delay in the opposite direction just to create a different type of effect and a different type of space for vocals to live in.
Putting up on my waist, money on the table. I just want some sauce, catch a board of mail. Flew right overseas, baby. Putting up on my waist, money on the table. I just want some sauce, catch a board of mail. Flew right overseas, baby, San Diego.
You can put modulation effects at different places in your vocal chain for a completely different vibe.
Voices in my head can't let me be.
Here's what it sounds like before the compression.
Them backwards, I was rolling a F.
And here's what it sounds like before the auto-tune.
Them backwards, I was rolling a F. These voices in my head, Paris, come see.
You can change settings on the compressors of the background vocals, specifically the attack and release time, to create another layer of depth. One of the primary ways that the human brain has evolved to perceive depth is through the level of the transients. So listen to how this vocal just disappears and moves back as I change the attack and release settings.
Floor, bitch, I'm a shooter straight down to the core. Pull up and I leave a clip at the door. Lead a scene, made a dash to the store. Hit a leg, 100K is a score. Flip the zip, now I'm back on the board. Go to the mall, buy the Louis V store. When I go to the mall, I buy every store.
Now the attack setting on a compressor controls the envelope of the signal and how loud you want your transients to be in relation to the rest of the signal. So if your background vocals have a compressor with a faster attack than your primary vocals, your brain will kind of trick you into perceiving them as farther away than the primary. Now, if you want a deeper understanding of compressors, all the settings, and how to manipulate them to your advantage, There's a great video that I watched a few years ago by Sonic Scoop that explains how to use compressors to create another dimension in a mix, and I'll link to that in the description. You can put a filter after a reverb and automate the cutoff for a cool, ambient, front-to-back effect. This can also work on other elements in your mix, and is just a cool way to change the space.
Rowan, spitting on the top when the Rowan. Little shorty give me top and it go down. Looking like she tryna stop and she no fun. No, you can't stop in my end. Cruising in the S5 to dip in. Getting off, count it up and it's all in. Boy, you can't stop in my end. No, you better stop, boy, don't come.
If you put a mid-side effect on your vocal, you can add processing to the sides while not doing anything to the mid to create stereo effects, but without compromising the mono phase integrity of the vocal.
Track and I drop a quick verse. Pop out spraying body from the fluent 7, man, no, that's why I let diamonds jump in, but they froze. Got the floor, the heat, but it's still keeping me cold. Had to vent the shit coming off the dome. Ocean Drive in the DT, we roam. Got the vet cause the lamb was long. All these hoes, they try to hold me. They always tryna get to know me. Ain't met them niggas that I roll. Hit the game, they come in with this trap. Smoke you out wherever you be at. I might tell you nah, it's not a hat. Hold up, nigga, no hoes.
So you can hear the texture the flanger adds to the vocal, while the dry signal is untainted and still straight up the middle. If you want to do this with a plugin that doesn't have a mid-side mode, you'll have to send your signal through a sum difference matrix and then apply processing to whatever channel the difference is routed to. If you're mixing vocals over a 2-track beat that already has been mastered, and you're having trouble getting the vocals to blend and sit cohesively with it, you can add some mastering stage effects on your vocal master bus, which will squash the dynamics of the entire vocals and just allow it to sit better on top of a beat that already has mastering effects. Most people know what a de-esser is, but have you ever heard of a re-esser? Probably not, because I've never seen anyone else use this effect, and I couldn't find any information about it on the internet. What a lisp is, quantifiably speaking, is just a lack of presence in the frequency range where sibilance exists, generally about 3K to 7K hertz. If we reintroduce energy in those areas, you'll notice it sounds much closer to normal speech.
Needless stress, they draw all these critiques cause they can't just relax. Needless stress, they draw all these critiques cause they can't just relax. Got a glimpse of freedom.
The plugin I like to use for this is the Eosis de-esser, but you can use an expander or a dynamic EQ for the same result. If your vocals have become too harsh because of tons of compression and EQing, you can add a multi-band compressor on your vocal groups to address the issue all at once.
Old town where I be, it's where I stay at, Jason Paris crib, your girl been at, you know who she texting, came over, gave a lesson. She said she want a D, she feel but I ain't testing. On the face, give me face, how I like it, face set, sideways.
Generally, harsh vocals have an excess of energy in the mid-range. Now this can help pierce through a mix, but over sustained periods of time can cause ear fatigue and just be difficult to listen to. So those are the areas you'll want to bite down on. A lot of people use a New York compression bus, something of that sort on their vocals to help it pierce through a mix. But you can achieve a similar effect in different ways. Some people know about the Andrew Scheps Pultec vocal trick, where you boost the highs, attenuate the lows, compress it, and then reverse the EQ after the compressor, and then you blend that back in. That's a way of doing, New York style compression, but you're only really bringing detail in the high ends. You're not overpowering the low ends. You can also do the same thing on a parallel bus and just drive a preamp super hot. Just adds a different flavor, a different color, but another way of achieving that same kind of effect.
At the kitchen, know we feel amazing. On your playlist, know it's Paris Jason. 4G racing, pull it at the station. 40s blazing, don't know where the case went.
Now, this last one isn't really a trick or technique, but more so a philosophical query that I struggled with for a bit, but once I understood, took my mixing capabilities to a whole nother level. You basically have to start thinking and approaching your mixes in the same way that we interpret audio in 3D space. Try this real quick. Close your eyes and snap your fingers right in front of your face, and then maybe a foot or two back, then over to the left, and then over to the right. You can't see your hand, but you can tell exactly where the sound's coming from, correct? Now, why is that? Why are you able to tell where something is just using your ears? This is because of the way our brains localize sound. So we have 2 ears, and this provides us with pretty much all the information we need to be able to tell the direction of a sound. Now, this is due to a ton of psychoacoustic phenomena that occur as the results of the way our brains have evolved. For instance, if a sound is to the right, there's going to be a time difference from when the sound reaches your left ear and your right ear. The waves are also going to be slightly out of phase. There's transient energy, which I talked about before, which allows you to perceive depth. The frequency content of sounds that are close, sounds that are high, sounds that are low, they're all different, and our brains very intimately and intuitively understand these relationships. Even something as subtle as the difference between early reflections and late reflections allows us to perceive another dimension. Now, I don't have time to explain all this to you, or else we're going to be here for a couple hours. But the moral of the story is that once you understand the implications of these different psychoacoustic phenomena, you can then use it to manipulate your mixes and create 3 dimensions. You can create height, width, and depth. Now, if you want more information on the subject, there are a ton of books on psychoacoustics. There's also another great Sonic Scoop video that I watched a few years ago, and it gives you a good starting point and a general outline of psychoacoustics and how all the different tools we have, compressors, reverbs, EQs, and whatnot, should be used for this purpose. I'll link to that down in the description below. And that's it, boys. I'm gone.
He said at 4 a.m. you got the call. 5 a.m. we moved it all. I don't really know if you could stop, but we just started off. Found the ones before we aired out, and now we watch them crawl. Guarded with your life, man, we came way too far to watch them fall.
On the wall, show me the baddest of them all. 4 a.m. I got the call, gossip right up on the wall.